Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Life with Annie. So I'm getting ready to make a meatloaf for our meal tonight. I'm doing this in the morning, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to get 2 meatloaves out of this, one for tonight and one to put in the freezer. I'm going to try to start cooking some things that I can double up and put one in the freezer so I can take a day off from cooking once in a while. I'll already have something in there. So I've got some ground beef and I've got some ground pork in here. And I'm just gonna mix these two together. This meat is really cold, y'all. Ooh, very cold. And I'm just gonna blend this together real quick. And I've already cut up part of a green bell pepper, part of a red bell pepper, and I've got those all right here. We're going to add that in, and then I've cut up an onion. I've got an egg here. I've got salt and pepper. I've got my ketchup, and then we're going to use the pork panko for our little binder in our meatloaf. So let me get this meatloaf mixed together, and we'll come back and we'll add in the peppers and the onions. All right, let's go ahead and get our egg in here. I may need to put 2 eggs, but we'll see. I did go ahead and put in the salt and pepper, and I'm not doing any kind of measurement, y'all. I'm just, you know, if you want to do a smaller meatloaf, you could do maybe a pound of ground beef and maybe 1/4 of a pound or 1/2 a pound or whatever you like of pork, or leave it out. I've done it with just ground beef before, but Matt wanted me to do something a little different this time. We couldn't find the veal. Well, we could, but we didn't want to pay the price for it, so we're just doing pork and then ground beef. All right, so we've got our egg blended in really well, I think. I'm going to go ahead and put peppers and the onion in here. And I just kind of coarsely chopped them. I didn't go too fine or anything. And I'll mix it together. If I feel like I need more of anything, I will certainly add it. But you can put whatever you like in your meatloaf. Whatever your family likes, I'm sure will be delicious. Kind of looks like a Christmas meatloaf with the red and the green. Okay, let me finish mixing this up. Well, we'll go ahead and add in let's add in these panko crumbs real quick, and then we'll come back. I'll wash my hands and we'll add in our ketchup. And I'm just going to add these gradually till I get all my panko crumbs. And these are pork panko. And they'll help bind our meatloaf. So let me get this mixed up and we'll be right back. Okay, y'all, let's add some ketchup. Here again, I don't measure, so do whatever you like. Let me see if I can get it out faster this way. I'm going to put a little bit of water in here so we get all of this out. I've got another one over here, but I want to get all of that out. Kind of reminds me of V8 or tomato juice, so I guess you could put V8 or tomato sauce in there if you like. All right. I'm going to put just a little bit more. And we'll give it a mix and see what we like. I never really cared for meatloaf as a kid, but boy, I sure like it now. I remember my grandmother, I guess she called it meatloaf, but it was different. She would make a kind of a square or a round of meat, but it was very light, so I don't know if it was pork, and it was so good. And all she did, it didn't have a lot of tomato throughout it. I don't remember peppers or anything. And when she put it on the table, just in the middle of it, it would have just a little circle of ketchup. It seems like she had sprinkled something else on top of it. Maybe not. Maybe it was just the ketchup. I can't remember, but it was so good. I would love to know what meat she used and what she put in it to make it, because I remember it as a kid and I really, really liked it. But that wasn't like what you think of as a meatloaf. So if any of your grandparents or parents made anything like that, and you have any suggestions as to what it might have been, it wasn't ham. I do know that. I'm just not sure. All those things that we wish we could go back and ask when we grew up, but we didn't think about asking when we were children. Okay. So I think that's going to be good for us. Got the peppers, the onions, salt and pepper, the panko crumbs, ketchup, and there's our big bowl of meatloaf. So let me get cleaned up, and we'll put these in pans, and then I'm gonna make my little topping for it. All right, so I've got 2 pans. This is a freezer safe dish, so I am gonna put an extra one in here for the freezer. So I'm just gonna get out my meatloaf. Now you could do these in like muffin tins kind of shapes and freeze it like that, and then have individual meatloaves. You don't have to have a muffin tin. You can just kind of form it yourself. I made quite a bit of meatloaf, didn't I? We're gonna have good lunches, and I could make freezer TV dinners with this. All right, let me get all our meatloaf put here and get it formed, and we'll see you back in just a second. Don't blink. Okay, so I've already put a nice amount of ketchup in this bowl. I'm going to add some mustard. That'll probably be good. We're going to stir that up, and then I'm going to add in some brown sugar. We're going to make this little topping for our meatloaves. I didn't measure this topping either. It's just to taste. It gives a little sweetness to the meatloaf, so if you don't like that, you don't have to put the sugar in. You can just top it with ketchup. You don't have to top it with anything if you don't want. You can put more ketchup inside your meatloaf. Okay. So I'm just going to stir this around. I like to have a topping on my meatloaf that has a little bit of sweetness to it. Now, if your grandmother made something like this when you were a kid and you know what was in it, let me know. She would just put a little right there in the middle, but it looked like it had maybe some finely diced onions on it too. I'm not sure, but it was good. We're just going to put this on top of our 2 loaves here. They're not really loaves, they're kind of casserole meatloaves. And we're just going to spread it around. If you like a lot of the topping and you want extra for when you're eating, you could always make an extra side of this and dip your meatloaf into it when you're actually eating it. So all right, there are our 2 meatloaves. So 1 for tonight, 1 for now, 1 for later, on a busy night or a busy weekend or whatever. Let me grab my lids for these. I'm going to pop this one in the refrigerator and this one in the freezer. So, oops, got it wrong. So it's going to be good. We should start a series, make once, cook twice. That way we've made this one time, but we're going to cook it twice and have 2 different meals. Okay, so that is that for our meatloaf. Now I will fix a cabbage with it. So I washed my bowl out. I've got my cabbage rinsed. I've started putting some scraps in here to take down to the chickens later. So I'm going to cut up my cabbage and leave it in this bowl in the refrigerator. And then this evening, I'll come in here and put it in a big pot and put whatever you like in it. Bacon. I usually use fatback or salt pork or something like that. Or you don't have to put anything. You could just season it up with salt and pepper. I'm going to cut it up, put it in there, and then we're going to have cabbage along with that tonight for supper. Just a good old-fashioned country meal, meatloaf and cabbage. So I'll show you my cabbage when I get done getting it all chopped up. Okay, y'all, so I'm cutting up my cabbage, and I've told this story before. If you've heard my story of the cabbage fairy and you don't want to hear it again, you can click out of the video, but I have had new followers, and I'm not sure if I've told it since I started uploading to YouTube, so I've got some people over there who may not have heard it. So I thought I would just tell it again. So when my children were young, they ate pretty good. They weren't really bad eaters. I kind of raised them to be fairly, I cooked meals and stuff, but there was, every once in a while you would come across something that they just hadn't tried yet and they just weren't too into it. And cabbage was one of them. And so, I don't know, they were probably 6, 7, maybe 8 years old, around that age. And they wouldn't try cabbage. And so I came up with this idea one day, kind of in the same vein as the tooth fairy, that there was a cabbage fairy. And the cabbage fairy wanted all the children to eat really good, healthy meals. And the cabbage fairy wanted them to try different things. And in this case, it was going to be the cabbage, of course. And so I told my children one night I was making cabbage, and I said, have you heard about the cabbage fairy? And they said, no. And I said, well, she sometimes, if you eat your cabbage, she will leave little treats for you. And, that kind of perked up their ears a little bit. And so I told them, I said, how about we try it? And I said, why don't we let me just put just a teaspoon of cabbage on your plate and let you try it and see what you think. And we'll see if the cabbage fairy comes to visit. So sure enough, I put just a small teaspoon of stewed cabbage, just like this that I'm making, on their plate. And after we ate our supper, and they tasted it, they ate that little teaspoon of cabbage. And after we ate, I said, well, I wonder if the cabbage fairy came. And they said, well, how will we know? And I said, well, let's look around and see if the cabbage fairy left you anything. So they were checking on the table, they were looking around the room, and I said, well, why don't we pick up our plates and see if she left you anything under your plate? And they both picked up their plate, and there was a shiny quarter. Today that probably wouldn't go over too well. Cabbage fairy has to go up a little bit in her treats, but they were so excited. And every time I made cabbage after that, I could put a little bit more on their plate, and the cabbage fairy would leave treats. Sometimes she wouldn't put it under their plate. She would put it somewhere else. But they always knew that if they ate their cabbage, they were gonna get a treat. And guess what? They ended up loving cabbage. So that was just my way of teaching them to eat just one vegetable that they, like I say, they ate pretty well. But that was a new one for them, and they were like, eh. But they ended up growing to love it. So that's my cabbage fairy story. So if you have picky eaters, maybe you could try that. If you can't get them to eat green beans or broccoli or any vegetable, you can name it the vegetable fairy and see how it goes. It worked out for us though. That's my favorite, one of my favorite memories. So anyway, if you've heard that story, I apologize you're having to hear it again, but there are new followers, so I thought I would go ahead and repeat it. So I wish I knew how to write a book. I'd love to write a book about that story. It just, I don't know, it's just special to me, and all that kind of stuff. Gets all up in your feelings. Okay, so I'm going to finish cutting up this cabbage. Maybe the cabbage fairy will come and see me and Matt tonight. What do you think? We'll have to see. But I'm just going to cut this up, take some of this, sharing our cabbage with the chickens. The cabbage fairy will go see the chickens later because she bought them some new treats, so they'll be happy about that. All right, so I'm going to refrigerate this, freeze that, refrigerate that, and I'll show you our supper later this evening. Thank y'all so much for joining me today for this delicious make once, cook twice kind of a meal. Now, we'll probably eat this cabbage up because we love cabbage. So we'll have other veggies with that. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll have a great rest of your day. And we'll show you the results at the end of the meal, or at the end of the day. Thanks for watching. Okay, dinner is served. So there is the meatloaf that I made this morning with the peppers and the onion, the pork panko crumbs. I made a little topping with ketchup, mustard, and a little brown sugar. And there is the delicious cabbage. I cooked that with some fat back. I put some salt and pepper to taste. So yeah, it's going to be a good supper. I'm ready to eat. Thanks for watching.